Perimenopause is kicking my ass. And honestly, even as somebody who has learned to build meals and learn to properly nourish myself, it's still pretty hard with perimenopause kicking my ass. Because no amount of, again, this is where perfection gets thrown out the window. And the thing about it just adds all of these things to this never-ending list of things to avoid, things to be reminded of, things to include. And honestly, I'm just tired. Sometimes I'm like, I'll just not eat, barely drink some water, let my body do what it's gonna do. All of these things are doing to fight is more exhausting than accepting, not in a giving up kind of way, but in a this is where we're at and we are going to work as best as we can to navigate that. Now, does this mean I'm giving up on things? No. But it means that I'm not going to stress about the things that are not priority. Like, if it's not a priority, it is not being looked at. So, nourishing myself is at the top. That in and of itself, though, can sometimes become its own noose because you feel you need to do all of these things perfectly. You need to have this morning routine. You need to work out for this long. You need to take these supplements. You need it's a lot. And do the best you can is where I'm at. And it's made it a little less overwhelming, but overwhelming nonetheless. So what do you do when one day you wake up and the aches and pains turn up, and the next day the motivation is way down here, and then the next day it's something new and random that you didn't know about? And even if you were warned, because of how perimenopause operates, so many of us have the same experiences but don't, if you know what I mean. Like, I don't experience hot flashes, but I know plenty of women that do. I, however, have this left side hip back pain that, of course, got worse because I had surgery done on my left foot 10 months ago, 275 days to be exact. And all the progress I had made from a previous back injury, which to this date still don't know what caused. In fact, there is nothing physically wrong with my spine. Having seen specialists upon specialists and done diagnostics, one day I just could not bend over, couldn't put on shoes, couldn't put on pants, couldn't stand up on one leg, couldn't sit, couldn't drive. To this day, we don't know why. And just when I felt like I was getting over the hump where the pain was lessening and I was able to function. I was in the gym 3 times a week for strength training, but I was able to get back into some cardio and I started to feel like myself again. This injury happened and I'm more or less back to square one, where all the issues I was having with the back, with the exception of I'm a lot stronger, but all of it is concentrated on that left hip. Don't know why. And it's frustrating. So I'm at PT this week for a follow-up and my ankle heel is healing perfectly. But this hip, low back pain, I had 2 new things added to the already long and extensive list of things I do for prehab, rehab, just to navigate this back pain. You're doing all the mobility things, you're doing all the stretches, you're doing the core work, you're trying to make sure you don't sit a certain way, you get up and move often, and it still don't seem like it's enough because the pain still exists. Not to mention having to fire your medical professional as part of your team and go on a search for somebody else who will believe you as far as what your pain is and all the things you're experiencing. So that's a long-winded way of saying that I don't know what the hell I'm doing in this stage of life, but I do know that I'm going to prioritize as much as I can my health and well-being without making it a noose, without making it being this checklist of things to do. So what does that mean? It means I'm going to eat as well as I possibly can. Protein and fiber are important, yes. So of course I'm going to try to ensure that all meals have that. But then when you add things like ADHD to it, there's the memory situation, there is the forgetfulness, there is the distractions, there is the procrastination. Trying to corral all of that is a full-time job. So try not to let that stress you out, plus nourish yourself, plus make sure you sleep, plus make sure you tap into joyful things. That's what this period of life is about, because anything else is just going to add, compound, and make it worse. The list of symptoms that exist are a lot, and the whole discussion of hormone replacement therapy. Here's my thing about that. With perimenopause leading into menopause, there is this whole transition. Hormones are shifting, and for me, now that I know what I know, my symptoms started around 38, which is around the same year my mother died. I don't know if there's a link, but I will say, all I know is that after that, things started to happen that I could not explain. Had the face broke out when I never really had terrible acne once I got out of teenage years, and then once I quit dairy back in like college. Never really had terrible acne, but I had this whole series of bumps. Couldn't explain why they popped up. Then the back thing happened. Still have no explanation for that. Then changing blood pressure when I've historically had low blood pressure or blood pressure below normal. So normal is 120 or 180, and mine was on average maybe 116 to 118 over 72, 74. To it moving past that, to have cholesterol levels shift upwards when I eat a good amount of beans and plants, I exercise and I move daily. It's a lot. It's too much sometimes, and I just want to curl up. But the world doesn't stop, and you have to keep going on. Add on top of that grief from losing parents and life changing in a certain way. You grieve. There's multiple levels of grief. So this period of life, I call it the WTF period, because that's the question you ask every day. WTF. Anybody else experiencing that? Like some days, if I don't even bother chronicle what new thing popped up. One day my elbow, next day my shoulder. Just from being a woman and hormones changing. And let's not talk about the menstrual cycle, because that's a whole different thing. So this has nothing to do with food, but also includes food. Because no amount of tricks, no amount of trying to micromanage food is going to make the symptoms go away. Now, you have people who are intentionally, making sure they cut out XYZ because it makes certain things flare up. But this idea that you can make perimenopause symptoms go away completely if you cut out X foods, if you eat a rigid way or eat a certain way, I personally don't believe that's the case, because hormones are hormones. And yes, we could argue about all the things in the environment that affect the hormones, but I am one person, but I still don't believe that I can singularly stop myself from being impacted by these shifting hormones. Like, I could be as rigid as I want. I could follow all the biohacks. My body's gonna do what my body's gonna do. And I think accepting that is the easiest, if not the simplest way to navigate the journey, which means, what does this mean? It means that I can't stress about it. It means that I have to make every day count. It means giving myself grace for when I don't feel my best. I mean, you should always really do that anyway. It means going after the things I want to go after. It means honoring my energy and capacity and not bending myself backwards to please folks at the expense of myself, or giving so much of myself that I leave nothing for myself. And so being selfish sometimes is important, but I have no idea where I'm going with this. I just needed to share something today in this daily journey of recording YouTube videos. And all the gurus will tell you, you need to post something meaningful. Listen, this is meaningful to me, and I'm just trying to figure it out. Hormone replacement therapy is the next thing I'm talking about with my new primary care physician, with my medical team, because there's also nutritionist, there's also my PT, there's also my gastroenterologist, because stomach issues isn't that thing I used to have, but I've had issues with that since 2023, and so it's important for me to build my team to cater to my current circumstances and have people who believe me when I say my body is feeling this way, I think something is wrong, or I'm not satisfied with the approach for this. What is the next step, or what can we do about it? And it's a collaborative effort, as opposed to being talked down to or being steered in a direction that has nothing to do with my current situation or the problem I'm experiencing. An example of that would be going to somebody and explaining all these things in the perimenopause situation, and in particular getting blood panel work and seeing the cholesterol numbers go up, for example, and the physician is going to say, well, you need to make sure you just cut out, eat a low-fat diet, and exercise how many times a week. Never mind the fact that I've already explained everything I do. And on top of that, kept looking for other things on my chart that had nothing to do with the visit. For example, asking me about my asthma inhaler. Now, I have an emergency inhaler. I had childhood asthma. I am not troubled with it as an adult, unless I am sick, like I got the flu. Sometimes it happens, or I have a flare up, right? But for the most part, I do not use an inhaler on a daily basis. But that is going to be the thing that they focus on. Like, do you need me to top it up? And is the medication still working? Like, lady, that's not what I came here for. I just shared all of these things with you, and that is what you're going to focus on. So it's important for you to advocate for yourself too, because in this country, I realize that you need to advocate for yourself a lot, and especially as a woman of this skin tone, a black woman. Worse, I am an immigrant. It's even more necessary, because they will steer you far and wide, and leave you to suffer the consequences. So being proactive means asking questions, means digging deeper, means getting another opinion if you are not satisfied with what you are getting, or more specifically, if you feel as if you are not being heard. And this applies whether you are talking to somebody about your perimenopause symptom, like your primary care physician, or you're talking to a functional medicine doctor, or you're talking to a nutritionist, whether you're talking to a personal trainer, for example, because That's another thing that seems to be, not seems to be, but for women in this stage, things like strength training and resistance training, it's also being marketed, but also pushed and encouraged. Not just marketed, but encouraged. So things like a personal trainer is also, I would think, part of your care team. So it's important for you to stand up for yourself, advocate for yourself, but also don't take everything you see on the internet as gospel. Just because somebody did it does not mean it's going to be the right fit for you. And so that's why it's important to build your care team in order for you to find a tailored pathway for you. Of course, I am not going to dismiss the fact that not a lot of us, not everybody rather, has the capabilities to build a team. Like, you have to go through so many loopholes. You have to access is a thing. Access is an important thing to acknowledge. Not everybody has the access, and so if you do have the access, it's important. It's imperative that you make use of it. But also, your vote also matters when the time comes for voting locally and nationally. So that's a side note. So back to access and making sure you advocate for yourself. So all of that to say that if perimenopause is kicking your behind on the nutrition front, on the fitness front, on the sleep front, on the mental health side of things, you are not alone. But I also believe that being patient with yourself as much as you possibly can is important. And this is a journey that tests your patience. Test it, like really test it. Some things you can't explain. You don't know where it come from. For example, however many, like about 3 weeks ago, I experienced this insane amount of rage. I don't know where it came from. I just know that I was raging. I was pissed at everything and everybody. I wasn't screaming or anything like that. I probably should have, but I was just mad. I can't explain it. And then it kind of disappeared. Never happened to me before. I'm an even keeled person. This is not to say that I don't get upset, but I don't know where the rage came from. So, see what I mean? Perimenopause is a mind trip. It's a mental, physical warfare. That's what I think it is. And some days I just don't have the energy to fight. I'm like, body, you're going to do what you're going to do. So my only job is to show up and take care of you as much as I can. And let God do the rest. Because what else you going to do? All of that to say, take care of yourself, nourish yourself the best way you possibly can, and you are not alone. If this resonates with you, if you have been having similar experiences, but also not, because there are like 100 and something symptoms that so many women don't all experience the same thing. They don't experience all of them, but there are so many of them that we experience that it feels like a big worldwide club that we are now getting access to, because my mother told me nothing. Zero. I knew nothing about this. I've never had I didn't have a discussion with my mother or any of my aunties about this. It wasn't not until now. I mean, my mother's not alive, and not until now I'm having the discussion or hearing my friends talk about it, and am I understanding the depths of what this thing is. But nothing could have prepared me for it. And so we just have to do the best we can, yeah, man. So that's it. That's all I got. And come back tomorrow. I will jump back on the nutrition train. But I just had to share all of this. I just had to vent this. I had nothing else to talk about today. And who knows what this does. I don't really care. If you've gotten this far, God bless you. Thank you for watching. But